EA are finally listening to us. Their senior developers are sitting down with content creators and answering our questions. Because the focus this year is on us, the community, what we want. So today we're going to take a look at every detail that we know about FC26 Ultimate Team that has been revealed by the developers in the last few days. And we're going to be talking about and showing some big clips that come from the FUT accountant in his sit-down interview with the FUT economist, now known as Jamie, one of the senior product leads at EA. So let's look through some of these clips, as well as some social media posts, and look at everything there is to know about FC26 Ultimate Team. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. Let's get into it. The first part of this discussion was based around EVOs.
And okay, there's two versions here. So that's one thing we saw last week with the Choose Your Own Adventure Evos. I loved that. Is that a new thing? Like, is this a test at all? Or is this just like, we want to give you guys two Evos with one of them having less games and being paid, and one having more games and being free?
So this is something that we have seen towards the end of FC25, multiple versions of EVOs, one where you play a load of games but you get it for free, or one where you can fast track and get it immediately by paying a small amount of points or coins. We've also this year had a lot of build your own EVOs, whether that was the Team of the Year one, whether it was the Future Stars Icons and things like that. So let's hear what Jamie has to say about these kind of EVOs going forward.
Yeah, I mean, we're always testing stuff, obviously. Yeah. I think one of the things that we did see a ton of success with was, or at least in terms of the community feedback around it, was the sort of like choose your own adventure kind of evolutions. Admittedly, they were a bit confusing. You know,
I agree.
Just the different screens that we have to try and communicate that kind of stuff is not exactly where we want it, right? So like the sort of player picks and the fact that you could put the Evo into a thing that would actually lock it out of a future step of the Evo. We know that was not ideal. And I think one of the things that, you know, you'll see some stuff coming out in early FC26 that'll allow us to like better communicate sort of like the actual Evos and what they can be chained into and all that kind of fun stuff.
Okay. Which is really interesting, because does that mean that there's going to be quite a big menu redesign when it comes to EVOs going forward in order to communicate these ideas and the way that EVOs are going to go through multiple different processes? Because sometimes you had objectives that then got you player picks to choose your EVOs for your playstyles that then had to go onto a specific card, but then if you put them onto that card too early or too late, then it locked you out of a different part of the EVO. So they're looking at making this a lot more streamlined and easier to understand.
We sort of know that that's a known problem space, if you will. But yeah, I think these kinds of like build your own, create your own path kind of EVOs are definitely something that we're looking to sort of build on and you know, sort of take the community feedback and do more of them.
So that's fantastic. Next, there is a bit of a talk about SBCs, and more specifically, SBC bans, which normally happen towards the end of the year when people are doing hundreds, potentially thousands of SBCs and getting slight soft bans. So once again, let's see what Jamie has to say about SBCs towards the end of the year and how they've progressed over the years.
I guess, what's your take on it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, like, if you think back to like when SBCs were first made, they were meant to be sort of this like, you know, Wordle crossword puzzle. Like you get in and it's sort of this like interesting challenge to solve because you have to solve this like chemistry equation, right?
Which is why people used the likes of Footbin in order to find SBC solutions, because they were actually pretty hard. The advanced SBCs at the start of the game were an absolute nightmare. You'd spend ages trying to figure out how to get the chemistry. Nowadays, very different.
Right? Yeah. And they've obviously like evolved tremendously since then to be essentially like the game's dusting system, right? Like that's how you recycle stuff. And that the design around how you actually interact with that system hasn't evolved with the way that the use case for SBCs has evolved alongside it.
Sure, it's true.
And so you know, in FC25, you did see us start to roll out some of those changes to the squad builder and sort of like helping players try and move through it faster. Pale Tools was certainly an inspiration, and other, you know, mechanisms like it.
I like that this is specifically stated, because everyone in the community that knows what the likes of Pale Tools are, which if you don't, basically massively helps you complete SBCs significantly quicker. You can like autofill with specific requirements and stuff like that. Obviously, EA don't really like these kind of things because they're third party, like not source material. However, for their developers to actively say the name of something that has inspired some of their features is really good. And the whole point of this is the open, transparent nature of this conversation, which is something that we haven't had before.
But you will see us continue to lean into that space.
Okay.
I'll save the details for later about what that actually means. But
I know
you will see us continue to lean into that space. We don't think it's fun to have this sort of like awkward, maybe friction-filled experience around like menu grinding. We do think that there's some value in there being like a skill to menu grinding, and what exactly that continues to look like in the future. Like we want to make sure that's still there.
Which again is interesting because when things can easily have like an instant solution put on Footbin, FootGG, all of these things, makes it hard for it to be a skill-based scenario.
But sort of the fact that one of the other problems that we want to try and think about too is that, and this maybe it's not as relevant to some of the folks on this stream who are probably going to skew quite core, but like SBCs just in general are a pretty intimidating experience right now to like a new player, right? Like you come in and you're like, all right, I get this pack, but I've got to get these players, and a lot of these players are like some of the best players in my squad if you're like a newer player, right? So like, does this exchange make sense for me? I don't even know what this like 95 plus pack is going to actually give me. And so anyway, we're looking for ways to try and improve the experience for both like the menu grinders that are like doing like hundreds, thousands of SBCs a year, and then also folks that are sort of a little bit more casual.
Which again is something that the kind of people, you guys that are watching this, probably don't really think about. What is the experience of the game in general, but also specific parts like SBCs? How does that come across to someone that is a complete noob when it comes to the game? Like, they haven't had years and years of experience of, oh, it's a player SBC, it's an upgrade pick or pack or whatever, I know exactly what I'm getting. They're looking at it and thinking, well, what exactly does that mean? How do I do this? Is it going to be worth it? And so I like that they are trying to cater to all types of players. And we see that in not just SBCs, but other stuff going forward, as we'll see in the rest of these discussions. And he also stated in another clip that when it comes to SBC bans and things like that, they are looking at ways of potentially setting different limits throughout the year. Obviously, these are the kind of things that are in place to prevent bots abusing the game and things like that, but real players are getting affected by them. And so it's not something that will be in place at the very beginning of FC26, but they're looking into it. Next is a discussion about the power curve in FC25, which was a communally agreed big problem this year.
In terms of the hardcore user base, which again, a lot of these guys are here that are watching, like, it felt like it started really fast. Like, we got out of gold cards real quick. And then we got to Team of the Year, and we got Team of the Year cards and Team of the Year Bale SBC and that Team of the Year Blueprint Evo. And it was like, wow, this is insane. But then it just kind of made everything after that taper off, and it didn't feel as worth it. So, like, what was the feedback that you got for that, and how does that implement itself in 26 to help improve that a little bit? Because I know it's got to be a crazy way to calculate it throughout the whole year. So many decisions with all the promos and cards. So
and it is a shame because the initial part of Ultimate Team each year was about the journey of building up that gold team and then slowly but surely adding in some informs and then some promo cards. Nowadays, what's the point in using golds at the very beginning that are less than like 83 rated? There isn't any. You jump straight to that team rather than ever so slowly building up to that over the first weeks and month. And no, you're past that now. And then with the Team of the Year point, it does feel like, other than maybe Foot Birthday because everyone's double 5-star, that gap between Team of the Year and Team of the Season is pretty dead. So what are they going to do to try and look at this and try and figure out this power curve problem and slow it down, which is a main thing? And we'll also look at a few posts that Jamie put out on his socials after this small piece of this conversation.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. I'm glad we're getting into this one because there's a lot to talk about here. And I know like this group is probably like the perfect, like your audience is the perfect audience to talk about this kind of stuff. I think so. Generally speaking, just kind of like high level, we heard the feedback this year around like the power curve moving too quick.
Too quick.
I think
too early.
A couple times
as
a
well.
year in particular, as you mentioned, sort of at the beginning of the year, and then sort of like team of the year into like team of the season time.
Yeah.
Were two periods of the
big
year
gap.
where we moved really quickly. And I think as we head into FC 26, we are going to be making a concerted effort to slow things down. But I do want to get into sort of like what it actually means to slow things down.
Yeah, sure.
I really do think that as much as I loved Foot Birthday and I love it every year, making every card double 5-star was a really weird stopgap because then until Team of the Season, you didn't really get any cards having that. And I think they misjudged things. I think they also did that last year a little bit with Winter Wildcards, but let's hear what he has to say.
And before I do that, though, I want to talk about sort of like what are we actually trying to like achieve when we like say slow it down. And I think, you know, there's maybe sort of two example problem spaces or like, you know, kind of like experiences that I would like cite. The first is that, you know, and I feel this probably just as much as you guys, like when you buy a player item or you like you pack a player item or you earn a player item for, you know, whatever it is, right? Get it from an SBC, Premium Pass, standard seasonal ladder. It's frustrating when that is like your new best striker and then it like stays your new best striker for like a week.
Yeah.
Right?
That is the biggest problem that we've had with the power curve this year. Nothing has any relevancy unless you pack the biggest and best card of a promo. It's basically dead within a couple of weeks, a month at most. Whereas previously, you'd potentially use cards for a few months, get like 1,000 games. Doesn't happen anymore. And no one buys cards because they're scared of their price plummeting either.
And then like the next promo, there's something that is like, you know, just as good, if not better. And that's frustrating. You don't get to like enjoy sort of the investment or the time that you spend to like, you know, get something.
Exactly.
So with that in mind, we want to, you know, find ways that we can extend out the life, if you will, of some of the items. That's kind of the, you know, one of the things that we're looking to do. The other piece is that just directionally, it's become a really like risky value proposition or sort of like investment, if you will, to like buy an item off the transfer market, especially if they're an expensive item, and then hold that for an extended period of time.
That's facts.
No one runs tradable cards anymore. It's all untradeable teams because everyone's terrified of their card just becoming worthless because, oh, the same player got another promo card 2 weeks later.
And that's like kind of frustrating. Like you see a lot of people like they basically just have like untradeable squads, or a lot of people just run untradeable squads because they just don't want to worry about. Yeah, they just don't want to worry about the fact that like, hey, like this item might just like collapse.
Who buys
in price
cards
tomorrow.
anymore? You spend the coins on fodder.
With that in
packs,
mind, those are kind of like the
SBCs.
two things that we're taking back and kind of going like, all right, well, we want people to feel like confident engaging in the transfer market, buying items, putting them into their squads, and we also want to have like just basically allow players to like enjoy sort of the items that they go and earn, and just kind of like, you know, get used to them, sort of grow affinity with them, etc. So anyway, with that in mind, we're going to be looking to slow down the power curve. There's a couple things that I would, you know, you could expect to happen as a result. The first is that like the lifespan, if you will, of some of the like base content at the beginning of the year is hopefully going to extend.
Awesome.
So you're looking at like gold items sticking around for a little bit longer.
The question is though, does that only mean the top tier gold items, right? Are 83s, 84s, 85s actually going to have any relevance? Or are you talking about the top 10 golds in each of the major leagues? Those are two very different statements. Like, in the past, I used, I think it was FIFA 17 or 18, Gold Nathaniel Klein was the first player on my team to reach 1,000 games. He just didn't need replacing. There's no world where that happens nowadays. Obviously, you could Evo them, but it's not the same.
Base heroes for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Same thing with the icons.
That's good.
The other piece is that, you know, especially as we get into sort of like a, you know, sort of like a Black Friday through holiday window, and then like team of the year into team of the season, that kind of window, you could expect like the pace at which you know, we're going to like upgrade the stats of the players in those campaigns is probably going to come down a bit as well.
Okay.
Now, exactly what that looks like is still to be confirmed, but you can kind of think of it as the like the ways that we're actually going to like mechanically do that, if you will. And this is something that like obviously we're going to need to stay close with folks like yourself and the community to make sure that like we're doing this in a way that like feels good for everybody.
Yeah.
Is that you can expect
Play
things
styles,
like the
roles.
rewards that you get for objectives or game modes or perhaps the seasonal ladder or maybe the power of the items that you can create through evolutions are going to come down, right?
So everything is going to be less in order to keep the power curve at a slower pace. Because otherwise, with massive rewards in champs, rivals, SBCs, new modes, it just gets so high so quick that that's what causes the immediate irrelevance of those lower promos and starter golds.
Like, so to make sure that we can actually slow things down, we have to sort of like decrease sort of the accessibility, if you will, of some of that content. But the important point there is that it's not going to come down, and it's going to come down for everybody, right?
Yeah.
It's like there's kind of the mantra of like, if everybody's rich, nobody's rich kind of thing. If everybody has like all that top tier content, then you have to like keep the treadmill spinning really fast in order for that to be a thing.
Yeah.
So
that's a big problem, and has been.
So
for a few
basically, like,
years.
that's kind of what you can expect. Sort of that launch is that like the overall sort of like mode rewards and some of the other things that you can earn are going to come down at least compared to last year, and that allows
mind
us
that
to
at
sort of
all.
like slow things down.
Okay.
As I said, that's going to be one that we expect, like the actual sort of delivery of that one and that, and the tuning around that and sort of the rewards that we set up. It's going to be important that we try and get that one right and continue to listen to community feedback around that one, and we'll adjust if folks don't like it, of course.
Which is
but
good
yeah,
to hear.
that's part of what we're hoping to use as sort of the mechanism to sort of, as I said, slow down the power curve.
So, good news all around. Basically, rewards are going to be less in all of these things, which means that things aren't going to become stale immediately, and you're not just already going to be looking for the next upgrade to your team. You can actually enjoy using a card. You pack a promo, it might actually mean something, rather than it just being irrelevant immediately. So, really, really good.
The idea here too is that as we slow things down, we want to make it the idea here is to make it so that we don't lose some of the sort of directional gains, if you will, that we've made in like accessibility of content. Like if you were to go back to, I don't know, FIFA 18. Okay. The gap between folks that have a lot of time to play the game and don't have a lot of time to play the game, or folks that like, have decide to spend money in the game or don't decide to spend money in the game, was much larger than it is today.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
This is true, and this is why it's why people say that the game is pay to win, but I feel like the people that say that did not play the older games, where there were years, especially when coin selling was at its absolute peak in like FIFA 15, 14, before they introduced price ranges and stuff. If you didn't spend any money, you literally could not get a vast amount of the normal gold cards. And then you got into the years of champs where if you weren't playing, you would fall behind massively. Nowadays, it really doesn't feel like that's a problem. It's finding that balance between making it so that it's not a massive difference between someone that is playing all the game modes and playing all the time and someone that isn't, because then they'll just fall away and they'll have no interest because they feel like their team is falling far behind and everything like that. What's the point in playing if I can't compete? But then you've also got to balance it to make sure that the people that are playing a lot actually feel like they're getting rewarded for spending their time on the game. And that's a really tough balance to crack.
And so even though we are talking about taking down sort of like the amount of rewards that you get in like any given game mode or for evolutions or through SBCs or whatever it is, right? What we do still want to maintain though is like the fact that if you are just a Road to Glory player and you're not going to spend any money, you can compete with folks that do decide to spend money.
Sure.
That's what we love to hear. Road to Glory is all the way. That's what it should be like. You shouldn't have to feel like you need to spend any kind of money on the store or packs and everything like that in order to compete. So great to hear directly from the senior lead developers.
So that's going to be something. I just want to make sure that that's good. I saw a couple of comments in chat about that. Like the goal here is not like a result of this. We will have failed if the result of this is that it becomes more pay to win, right?
Okay.
Like that's definitely not the direction that we want to go. It's meant to just sort of calibrate everybody down sort of at the same rate so that the speed of things can sort of just slow down and people can enjoy the items that they have for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Perfectly put, and the fact that he even references the phrase pay to win and avoiding that. This is the kind of transparency that we've wanted for so long. Just having these like higher up, obviously not like the top like bigwigs of EA, but the more senior developers and people in those kind of positions at EA Sports working on the game, actually just sitting down and having these conversations so that we can hear things from their perspective and how they're working on trying to make things better for everybody. Because even if some of you watch this and you disagree with some of the things that he says, at least you can understand it from their point of view rather than it just happening with no explanation. And this is where we do need to quickly look at social media, because he came on, Jamie, and clarified what he was talking about. So he talked about slowing down the power curve to help items stay relevant for longer, for example, lasting longer. But it doesn't mean less promos, which some people were saying that means that there's not going to be weekly promos and stuff like that. That was coming out from some of the leakers, when in reality, that's not what he meant. Our current plan is to continue to have weekly squad releases, aka weekly promos. We've seen that players get bored if we don't do that. So they are still trying to cater to the people that need that, like those endorphins coming in. It's a new injection of new content. But the key change is that this year, the average stat boost size will be smaller. So not these massive, massive, massive boosts that basically mean that unless you have the newest promos, you're missing out. He also says, in general, promo squads will focus more on meta depth and accessibility, less on direct power iteration. So less about bumping up that power curve and more about spreading it out and making more players on that same level available to everyone that's playing. We will still have big boost-heavy promos. They're fun. But when every promo is special, none of them are. Could not agree more. If it helps frame things, we're calibrating the pace to be closer to FIFA 23 or FC 24, meaningfully slower than 25, but not dialed all the way back to something like the FIFA 15 days, which I think is understandable. It was never going to be that. They were never going to do this massive mega reset where we only have Team of the Week and Team of the Year and Team of the Season. It wasn't going to happen. I feel like maybe they could have dialed it back a little bit further than 23. However, we'll have to see how they do with the pacing this year and what it ends up looking like with the current situation when it comes to packs, SBCs, EVOs, etc. And he also says that the topic is hard to properly explain in a Twitter thread, but I can promise that we'll keep listening and working to tune better based on your feedback throughout the year. So once again, more transparency, even after coming and having this sit-down conversation, to then come out and clarify what you were talking about when you didn't need to. You have to respect it. Next up is a bit of discussion around the season pass / season progress / battle pass, whatever you want to call it.
Speaking of the season pass, that's obviously been a huge thing in 25, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday, how it's really seems so crazy that some of the SBCs and EVOs almost feel like they fall behind a little bit. So starting at the beginning of 26, like obviously for a lot of us who've pre-ordered the game, we're going to get that premium pass straight away.
Right.
Is that one of the areas where you feel like you can help somebody who grinds the game more, is able to buy the pass with either points or coins and not spend big in the store? That's a place where they can keep up because the cards in the premium pass are like with the power curve or maybe even moving up as the power curve moves up.
Before he answers, have to give a massive shout out. Very good questioning and wording of questions when it comes to this interview. Could very easily have just asked questions that were incredibly easy to give, like politician answers, where you can just give something wishy-washy that doesn't really actually answer the question. But if you are direct in your wording and reasoning, then, I mean, I don't feel like at any point our EA dev here, Jamie, comes across as trying to avoid a question. Like, there's no point where that really feels like it's the case. But you are giving him the fuel to the fire of the question, and it makes it so much easier to get a direct response rather than just, what are some things that you think could be improved? No. Is this a problem? How is this going to work? How are you thinking about it? Line of questioning is brilliant. Let's hear the answer.
Yeah, it's a good question. I would think just like a high level, we want the premium pass to be, one of the better places to spend either coins on any sort of offer or FC points on any sort of offer. So if you choose to engage in that, like our goal is to make that to be like the no-brainer purchase, right?
Sure.
Exactly the tuning of that and sort of what that looks like in FC 26, obviously still to be confirmed. And just as I was just saying there around sort of like the rewards kind of being calibrated down, the premium pass as well as the standard pass are going to be kind of calibrated down as well to sort of like match that, right? So.
Hopefully they can get the right balance between all of the modes and rewards and pass and objectives and evos so that one thing isn't significantly clear of the rest, because otherwise it means that everyone's going to be focused on one game mode or something along those lines.
It's not, our intention here is that it's not sort of, we're not trying to have like only some of the ships sink and some of them stay at their current level kind of thing. It's important that everything gets calibrated down at the same time. We've seen obviously like super positive feedback, not just with the premium pass, in FC 25, but just like the season ladder in general.
Which is really, really good to hear.
People talking about how that's something that they enjoy, working towards the SP that they can use to unlock the later levels and whatever it is, and we intend to continue that in FC.
Really, really good to hear. I think that the Season Pass has been really good. I think that the premium version or the paid version has actually been worth it, which a lot of things in the game are not, whether it's a paid Evo or a pack in the store. So I think they have balanced it quite well. And the fact that they're listening to people's feedback in terms of the tuning of it and everything like that, also in terms of how easy or hard it is to gain the SP, to progress through the pass at a decent pace, rather than just getting a bunch of SP right at the very end because no one's managed to get close. I feel like over time they've got better at that, and hopefully it just continues. There's then an interesting question that comes in about content feedback and how this influences what they do going forward in terms of new promos or campaigns, as they call them. And the response, I'll very quickly summarize it, is that they have multiple ways of summarizing people's thoughts on content. One is through the feedback portal, where you can directly talk to them, whether you're a creator or just a normal player of the game. But the other one, they have algorithms that basically comb through all of social media and how people are talking about whether it's game mode rewards, whether it's a new SBC or an objective or things like that, in order to judge it. And it means that when it comes to changing things, they can do it relatively quickly. So if Team 1 of a promo is not received well, they can tweak Team 2 to make it that little bit better so that people react to it in a more positive way. I think this next part is a really interesting one. This is a talk about tournaments and their return to Ultimate Team. We've seen them a lot in the past when you used to have the daily knockout tournament and things like that. They are coming back in a big way in FC 26. Let's hear what they have to say about it.
FC 26, we're really excited for tournaments, especially with the announcement of that from the trailer.
Yeah.
Especially with the knockout style. I think that word was used in that trailer.
Yeah.
Because that brings us back to very fond memories of the DKT.
Yes, it does.
Can you speak a little bit to what the tournaments will bring to all?
Which, for those of you that don't know, the DKT was the Daily Knockout Tournament, and this was used to qualify for FUT champs in the past, and it was also used to earn rewards. You had to win a specific amount of times in order to obtain different cards throughout Team of the Season in the past. If you won the Daily Knockout Tournament, maybe you had 7 attempts to win it on that day, and if you did it, then you obtained a blue card. If you didn't, well, unfortunate. Those were the rewards tied to it, and again, it was also used for qualification in the past.
Ultimate Team and how it'll maybe shape the way that we play weekly.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I'm glad we're talking about it. I'm super excited for tournaments. Going back to the daily knockout tournaments, the nostalgia hit is certainly strong.
The one downside, before he continues with his answer, is it feels like it is another competitive mode, which is touched on, but I feel like the answer doesn't really make too much sense because you're taking away from some competitiveness and adding it into another mode rather than a more casual kind of thing like friendlies or online single matches.
I think there's a couple of things I want to mention about that. So the first is that when we think about sort of the menu of things that you do, if you will, in like any given week,
This is that
or any given season in Ultimate Team right now. A lot of the time that you spend is in rivals and champions. That's a huge portion of your time. Then sure, you know, some players choose to grind out squad battles. I'm not personally one of them, but some people choose to grind out squad battles. A bunch of players will, you know, engage in evos and they'll complete them in rush. And then you've got you know, a bunch of players as well who are engaging in the cups that we release on a weekly basis and that kind of thing. I think one of the changes that we're looking to make as we head into FC 26 is that we're going to try and sort of actually, maybe one thing before I get into that is that another thing we heard from our players is that there's sort of this like feeling of like competitive burnout, right? Like the amount of the proportion of your FUT sessions, if you will, your FUT, you know, time that you're playing, that is like white knuckle, like
gotta win.
I have to win. This is a really competitive match, and I'm like absolutely trying to maximize the squad that I have here, and I'm playing as, you know, meta as I possibly can. You know, that can be kind of that, you know, that can lead to burnout, right?
It can, which is exactly what I'm saying with adding tournaments in. In a tournament, you also need to win. There's also a new gauntlet mode coming to the game, which we'll talk about shortly as well, where you need to win. So I don't really see how this fixes the problem, but we'll listen to the rest of what he has to say regarding tournaments.
So one of the things as we head into FC 26 that we're looking to do is sort of give players like time back, essentially, right? So we want them to give time back in champions, which I don't know if you've talked about this with your folks on stream yet, but there's not going to be a champions playoffs anymore.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
No more qualifying.
So you'll get the 5 matches back from champions playoffs, and then the second piece is that we're looking to decrease the total number of matches that it will take each week to get your rivals rewards. It'll definitely be lower than what it was at FC 25 launch. That was like, definitely heard your feedback there. Way too many matches.
So much.
At FC 25 launch.
That is a dub.
But basically, we'll kind of take that down even compared to what it is now. So the number of like weekly matches that it'll take,
because it's currently
average,
too much.
Assuming that you're at like a reasonable division for your skill level, it'll take on average to get your rivals rewards. The upgraded rivals rewards will come down. And then what we're hoping that you can do, sort of with that like extra time, if you will, so that you have back, is we want you to like vary up the kinds of gameplay experiences that you're doing.
Yeah.
And we're hoping to sort of use like tournaments and live events and gauntlets sort of as like almost like they are like the content themselves.
Which is a really cool idea if it's executed properly. Again, I do find it hard to kind of get on board with the fact that you're saying that the competitive burnout exists and yet you're removing games from one competitive mode into another one. The live events is a bit different because that isn't a full-on competitive nature thing. However, tournaments and gauntlets, which we'll get onto, he does mention a few times, but I don't think it's actually been announced by EA yet, as far as I'm aware. When we get the Ultimate Team deep dive in a few weeks, I'm assuming they're going to be talking about it a lot because it sounds really, really cool.
Right,
Sure.
like, you know, right now, campaigns are the things that sort of like different, or campaigns are, I think you guys kind of call them promos. We call it, it's an interesting thing, we call them campaigns internally, you guys call them promos. Anyway, but like promos are sort of the ones that, are sort of the thing that sort of help differentiate, you know, week to week, season to season, whatever it is,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
And you've got sort of like the traditional piece of content, SBCs, objectives, and whatever, evolutions that sort of help like make that campaign what it is, and the squad release obviously is an important part of that too. We're hoping to use live events, we're hoping to use tournaments, we're hoping to use our gauntlet feature as like one of the things that is like the live content. That's sort of like the thing that goes like, oh, this is the thing that differentiates this experience from another. So like when you think about tournaments, sure, I think you're going to have some of those like quick hit sort of opportunities to kind of get in there, and maybe it's more akin to like a daily knockout kind of style thing. You know exactly what that looks like, who knows, and we're going to experiment with a bunch of stuff, and
hopefully there's a range of tournaments.
To go like, this was fun, this wasn't fun. I'll tell you, one of the things that I am most excited about though is that we have the ability to do what we call chained tournaments or chained events, right? So you can basically create something where the qualification requirement for a tournament is that you do something else, and that something else could be maybe you have done well in a previous tournament, or maybe you have achieved a certain division or in division rivals or gotten a certain number of wins in champions or whatever it is. So you can imagine a world where you could say like, all right, there's like a qualifying tournament for like an end of season, like, super, exciting tournament. That's like, all right, like I've qualified and now I have the opportunity to go and like play in this like end of season tournament, right?
Okay.
So you can imagine some of the possibilities there that could get quite fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, super excited for tournaments to come back. I wanted to give a little, that was probably more than you bargained for in terms of the answer, but want to give you a little bit of context.
No, that was great.
Which sounds cool, right? Cool concept. However, once again, it's more competitive games, especially if you're talking about this one where you have to maybe get to a certain stage of a tournament or win a tournament in order to qualify for another one. That just sounds like basically another version of Champs. The Champs playoffs being removed has turned into a tournament that you have to win in order to get into this like Super Champs-esque tournament. So I love tournaments being a thing, and it's a very different format to something like Champs, where it is just a certain amount of games. I just don't think that it helps with the competitive burnout issue that he talked about. There was also another point later on when they were taking other questions where they talked about the possibility of potentially having like bronze and silver tournaments and stuff like that returning like we've had in the past, and utilizing more of your club than just your main squad. And I like that. The fact that we have had to have different requirements in some of the live foot friendlies and cups and things does mean that some of the cards that you pack that normally you wouldn't even bat an eye at, you're actually now utilizing in a squad for a specific cup. So if that happens with tournaments, that could be quite cool as well. So we'll see how it works out. And I think maybe this is the time to very quickly slot in what the gauntlet mode is, because he never specifically explains it. And as I say, I don't believe I've seen it anywhere properly mentioned by EA as to what exactly it is. But it's a new mode where it's up to 5 matches and you use a completely new squad from game to game. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works, and it's based around like different requirements from one game to another, and you cannot use the same player more than once. So if, for example, you went in with, let's say, Rude Hullet in game 1, you wouldn't be able to use Hullet in the other games, and you win as many matches as possible for better rewards. Once again, another game mode that is reliant on winning is not good for competitive burnout. This is also not replacing draft. It should be using players from your club, it seems. We will get more details, as I say, in the Ultimate Team Deep Dive in August, but those are the details that we have right now. There is also a big discussion around FUT Champs and Rivals that happens as a part of this interview, and I feel like this is one where I can summarize it down, because we will get more details on it, but we have already heard officially from EA some of these changes. So, what are they? In Champs, there's going to be 2 different levels of Champs now. It's not fully set in stone how you will qualify for the top one, but the example he gives is that if you are in Division 5 or above, you might qualify for what is normal FUT Champs that we have right now. If you are Div 6 or below, you will qualify for FUT Challengers, which is basically a lesser version of Champs. It will have less games, and the rewards will be lower. And so the balance is making it so that people don't purposefully keep themselves in a lower division so that they can win every game in a Challengers event rather than getting maybe half of their games won in normal Champs. And he talks about that, and they'll obviously try and balance that throughout the year. If they get the balance wrong, they can tweak it, just like we've seen rewards change in different divisions in the past. He also talks about return on investment in terms of time. And a lot of people can't currently qualify for Champs, and so their time is not really giving them as much rewards as the people that can play Champs and can get really big stuff in the space of 15 games. And so giving those people in lower divisions of a lower skill level a nice event which gives them a similar ROI for their skill level is something that they focused on, and that is why this is being added in as a thing. Current champions will happen through Div Rivals qualification as it normally does right now in terms of earning the points throughout the week, But then, of course, as we said before, playoffs are gone. So you just get your points and then you're straight into champs. And the assumption is that's exactly how it's going to work for challengers as well. But yeah, less games, lower rewards, basically. It's a Europa League to the Champions League of champs. Also, confirmation from a different dev interview. Red picks are not coming back for champs. It is going to be similar to what we've had throughout this year, where it's campaign or promo players as part of the rewards. Next up is some more talk about evolutions and how they are going to change in FC26. Let's hear what they've got to say.
Evolutions a little bit, looking forward to 26. I know a lot of people have been asking to go Evo goalkeepers for a long time. You may not be able to confirm or deny that, but how can evolutions look different in 26 compared to 25 from right now? What can you share about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of exciting things in that space. Obviously, like we will have goalkeeper evolutions, so that's...
Which is really, really cool that he just comes out and answers that. Like, he could just say that will be revealed in a few weeks' time, more details about evolutions in the Ultimate Team Deep Dive. But just coming out and straight saying, yeah, you'll be able to Evo goalkeepers. I love it.
It's super exciting.
Yes. Finally.
And then there's a couple other things in that space too around sort of repeatable evolutions as well. Is going to be something.
This is really
so
interesting.
The ability for us to do evolutions that you can, kind of similar to SBCs, where you can like do it a limited number of times or a repeatable number of times, or you can do it 3 times every 24 hours, or whatever it is.
Okay.
That's something that's kind of going to be there in FC26.
I guess that's kind of similar to
really
what
cool.
we were just looking at, like 2 versions of the same Evo. One's free, one's paid. But it's a little bit different, but also a little bit the same, because we haven't been able to do too many Evos multiple times this year, like these more recent ones have. So, really quickly, too, I guess, I know we haven't talked a lot about gameplay, but I heard some of the gameplay guys mention that they make a lot.
So yeah, repeatable Evos are going to be a thing, similar to a repeatable SBC. As foot accountant, what a guy, by the way, was talking about there. We are currently seeing that being tested in the form of paid and free Evos, where you can do it once for free and then pay to do it multiple times. Whether that's the route that they're going to go down, sometimes in the past they've just released the same Evo twice, so you've been able to put 2 players into it. Maybe it will be more like that. Going to be interesting to see, but really good to hear, because there are some times where you've got 2 players that perfectly fit it and you have to choose between the 2. Why can't I just do them both? Really, really good change. As it got towards the end of the interview, it got more down to a few quick chat questions from the live stream. And so let's go through a couple of those. Draft. Is anything finally changing in draft? It's been in the game now for 9 years and it's basically not changed. Well, they say the core of draft is going to stay exactly the same. However, rewards will update and upgrade throughout the year. So you may see draft rewards move in a similar fashion to rivals and champs, where maybe you're getting promo cards as part of draft rewards. Fantastic. SBC storage was asked about when a lot of people were asking whether it would potentially be higher than 100, because a lot of people at this stage of the game have got a full SBC storage and they don't know what to do with it. And the response made a lot of sense. Throughout the vast majority of the year, you don't need more than 100 things in your dupe storage. And they are trying to learn from SBCs and the use of dupe storage this year, how they can manage things a little bit better in terms of the SBCs they release, being able to utilize lower rated cards in whether it's crafting upgrades and things like that throughout the year, or player pick upgrades. They want to try and keep it so that you're not reliant on having a massive duplicate storage, and that it could potentially be altered as the year goes on. For example, throughout footies, they may be able to expand it going forward, but they'll see how it goes through testing and tuning throughout the year. The last question that was asked on a live stream is about people leaving when it's a draw and you getting the win. There are a few things that were discussed after this, which we'll go over, but this is the last one with live stream content. So let's hear what he had to say about that very, very popular topic within the community and has been for years.
How about 0-0 quits?
Yeah, a good question. So, I mean, you would have seen in FC25 that we released sort of like the let's call it like the first phase of us really trying to go after this one. We've seen this feedback for ages, and I'm happy that we're like finally starting to get some real change in this space.
That is.
Because it has to be said, I'm honestly not sure if a single time since they introduced the change in FC25 of if your opponent had got a red card or conceded a penalty, or it was the second half, that you would get the win if they left normally through the game and it was a draw. I genuinely don't know in the however many months if I've benefited from that a single time. So it is a step in the right direction, but a baby one.
Nice.
It's still not perfect. We're continuing to try and make it better, but basically, as I said, FC25, we had the change where if somebody given like the right conditions, so it had to be like a red card, the penalty kick, past the 45th minute, etc. If somebody quit through the menu, so they paused the game, they scrolled down, they quit, then you would get the win if it was in a draw state, right? What we're adding in 26 is now it's not just menu quit, it's any kind of quit or disconnect, right? So you could like kick your console, you could turn off your router, you could, I don't know, DDoS somebody, whatever, right? Like, actually DDoS wouldn't count. No. Anyway, they have to initiate to quit. Anyway, but if basically any way of quitting is now something we believe is something that we're going to pick up and be able to give you as the win, right?
Come on, no more dashboarding to get away with it.
Like the actual conditions aren't exactly where we want them to be, and we'll give more details about what that is. But like, you know, again, phased process. We know what the end state is. We want to be able to get to that end state, but we just have to make sure that we balance for like sort of the bad actors, right? Like sort of the folks that can exploit that system. I do think we'll get there eventually, but you'll hear more about that as we talk about it at the release.
Which, again, will come out more in the Ultimate Team deep dive. So a couple more things that were either touched on in this stream or another developer interview stream that has happened over the last couple of days. The Season Pass. There are 2 questions that have also been answered. 1, are there any plans, once you get past the final level, for any bonus SP to turn into coins or packs or anything like that? The response is, it's something they're looking into, but at the launch of FC26 will not be a thing, but could potentially be added later in the year. In the old version of the season, we did have it so that once you got past the final level, they gave some bonus objectives, where if you did earn more, then you would get something from it. So this is something they've sort of looked at before, but obviously this would be a bit different, and it's whether you can balance it properly, especially considering you can buy further SP a lot of the times in the store. They've also said that unlike games like COD, Fortnite, etc., where you will earn back the V-Bucks for the pass that you spent in order to be able to buy the next one, same with COD, you earn the COD points that Battle Pass cost throughout the season, and then you can purchase the new one and have some points left over. They do not plan on doing that with FC points going forward as it stands, because you get the points and coins back really from the tradable packs, and that gives you a chunk of the value back, and you are also getting all of the cards and other packs that are untradeable in there as well. There is also clarification on what you get from the Ultimate Edition from Jamie on his social media. So the extra Evo slot reward that you get from buying the Ultimate Edition is permanent. This means that you permanently have an additional active player evolution live at the same time, aka 2 at a time, similar to when we increased it to 2 active Evos during FC25 Future Stars. He also says, if/when we increase the active Evo slot limit for everyone else, Ultimate Edition owners will stay 1 ahead. So if we go to 2 active Evo slots for non-Ultimate Edition owners, Ultimate Edition owners will have their limit increased to 3. So again, even more info, even more transparency. Lovely stuff from Jamie. He's had a very good week, which is very different to a lot of EA developers over the years and community managers when it's come up to release time. And one other thing to do with Evos is that you will potentially have the option to keep your current card design after an Evo is completed. So you don't have to change it to like this ugly like green card if you want to keep an awesome card design that you have on a player. Co-op Weekend League has been asked about, and the response is that they've heard the feedback and understand that there is demand for it, but it is not something that is planned for FC26, even if they are currently working on it. One of the devs was asked about a collection book feature potentially featuring in the game, and it is something that they are considering for the future, but not for FC26 once again. Is Ones to Watch coming back in FC26? Short answer, no. We have seen strong engagement with live events and are bringing those back, but Want to Watch itself is not returning. Are icon swaps coming back? Short answer, not like they used to be. We are introducing chained events instead that offer a similar progression-based experience. They were asked about the issue of laggy servers in the menus, and the dev said it's not directly my area, but we are working on reducing friction in the menus and improving overall loading times to make the experience smoother. Are there any plans for the World Cup 2026 license next year? The response is simple. Our relationship with FIFA and the World Cup license is currently unconfirmed. So that does differ to some of the leaks that say that a World Cup mode is coming. I would imagine that this will get announced either during the Ultimate Team Deep Dive or as we move into 2026. Will there be any changes to the Moments game mode? They say that they see Moments as more of a tutorial space for new players. Experienced players can use creative squads in other modes. So, no. Will there be an easier way to search for seconds Team of the Week versions or cards with multiple items at the same rarity next year? And they say it's not planned for the start of the year, but it's something we might introduce later on. I like that. There are no plans for an open world in FC 26. They are attempting to work with the Mexican League and the Brazilian League to license some teams. However, the licensing issue is difficult and potentially unrealistic as of right now for both of those leagues in full. And the final question that was asked that I can find in any of these dev interviews was about leakers. The interviewer asked, what do you think about the leaker situation, and is there anything you're doing to address it? And the dev's response is this. There are some positives, like leakers helping amplify official news, but overall it hurts the game. Leaks can impact the market and force players to stay updated just to avoid being at a disadvantage. I agree. It also takes away some of the surprise and shared excitement around new content releases. Absolutely. It's definitely something we're working on reducing for next year. They were then asked, do you think it can be completely eliminated? And the dev finally responded with, it's difficult, but it's something we're actively looking into. So those are the developer interview responses that we have got so far from FC26. This obviously combined with all of the news that we got from the gameplay deep dive and everything like that. We are getting the Ultimate Team deep dive in a few weeks' time. That's going to be really, really interesting to see what information we get on top of all of this. But a very, very positive start. I'm incredibly happy with the transparency, the self-awareness, and open communication that we're getting from EA this year, which we have never had in the past. So fantastic that they seem to have finally started to care about the community properly and truly, and the fact that they're willing to sit down with creators and have these conversations is something that we have asked for years and years and years. We're finally getting it. I really, really hope that as the game goes on, not just at like pre-release content events, I hope they do more of this and you potentially get a dev or like a content team member being able to sit down with a creator and have conversations about how the year has gone so far and any changes that they've made and reasons why going forward. But a really positive start to the new game cycle before it's even begun. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. That is going to be it for the developer analysis. Thank you very much for watching. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.